First of all, good morning. And Mr. Chairman, thank you very much for having me here. I feel it's an honor. I will try and give you, to begin with, an overview of the situation in Greece the way I see it, because it's in that overview within which I would like then to pinpoint some observations about the job done by the task force. I must also, before I start, address a thank you to Mr. Reichenbach for his quiet empathy for Greece with which he pursues his task. In Greece, progress on fiscal adjustment has been absolutely impressive. Non-interest expenditure in 2009 amounted to 113 billion euros. That was the total expenditure in 2009. This year, it's going to drop to 79 billion. In 4 years, a 30% reduction in government spending. It is remarkable by any standard. This adjustment was made possible by substantial cuts in wages and social benefits. We had a negative primary balance of 24 billion in 2009, and this year we expect to have a zero balance. So we've taken care of this primary balance within the last 4 years. But this achievement has had a terrific collateral cost to the Greek people. So we've managed to adjust, we've made the fiscal adjustment, but the economy shrunk by 25%, the unemployment has tripled, from 9% it's up to 27%, and in particular, there is an epidemic of jobless young people. 65% is the last number for Greece. In the northern part of Greece, in Macedonia, the latest number is 74% of young people are without a job. It's an epidemic. Because we had this shrinking, and we've had a steep number of people unemployed and therefore not paying taxes, it has been necessary to raise the taxes enormously for the people that still have a job. So we have now people without a job, but the people that do have a job have to pay much more taxes than they used to in order to cover up the missing part. I must stress that in my view there's no more room for tax increases or for a further reduction of wages and pensions. In fact, the danger, in my view again, lurks of a sudden reversal of this fiscal restraint as the pain inflicted on the population becomes politically unbearable. So we've created a situation where the danger exists that the government will turn around because it becomes unbearable to continue this kind of policies. Now, I'll describe to you the problem, the Greek problem, the way I see it. The problem was and still is the unwillingness of the Greek political system to introduce structural reforms that tackle tax evasion and liberalize and increase the flexibility of the labor market. In particular, the Greek political system continues to treat the horrendously overstaffed and badly staffed public sector as an untouchable sacred cow. So we have a sacred cow in Greece. It's called the public sector, and the political system refuses to touch it. And that results in an utterly dysfunctional bureaucracy. That is the context. And in that context, the task force has come into being and is mandated to assist in the introduction of structural reforms. That's the way I see the task force job. Help to introduce these structural reforms that will have then to be implemented by the Greek government. What to do with the public administration, what to do with regulations and institutions that foster growth and enterprise. That's the task of the task force. We now have this quarterly report that Mr. Reichenbach produced, which is a very good indication of the breadth and depth of its assistance efforts. You saw that he listed here more than 100 projects that are underway. So it's a big effort. However, the effectiveness of the task force depends on the willingness of the assisted, that is, of the Greeks, to accept change. You can have all sorts of assistance. If you are not willing to accept the assistance, nothing is going to happen. And in our case, in the case of Greece, I must admit that I do not see manifestations of that willingness. The contrary is true. There are roadblocks all around. No one dares confront the sacred cow. I have to go in some more details about this. I do not believe that Greece can achieve a significant and lasting administration reform without a brutal re-engineering of the administration. We cannot do it. I don't believe that. This will necessitate a drastic reduction of the unqualified and the redundant. People in the administration many of them are unqualified and certainly redundant. To give you an idea of the scope, 3 years ago I had estimated that some 400,000 wage earners in the wider public sector, 400 out of 1,000,001, would have to go over a period of 4 or 5 years. The Troika has tentatively pushed for the dismissal of 150,000 until 2015, but now has conceded to bargain for 15,000, just 15,000, when I'm saying 400,000. And these 15,000, which are now under discussion, include embezzlers, psychopaths and others that should have gone from the administration long ago. The outcome of this bargain, of this discussion between the Troika and the government is not concluded. And in the best of cases, the result is going to be definitely inadequate. I'm told, ladies and gentlemen, that in India, you do not remove a cow that defecates in the middle of the road because it's sacred. You leave it there to defecate in the middle of the road. Because it's sacred. It's a valid analogy for the treatment meted out to wage earners in the public sector. No one is evaluated, no one is reprimanded, no one is commended for his performance, no one is fired. That's not the way to run an administration. You cannot run an administration that way. A recurring sub-theme, something that Mr. Reichenbach raised before, is the need to reform the tax administration. Yes, it has to be reformed. There's no question that it has to be reformed. But it will not be reformed as long as the people working in the tax administration remain untouchable. Part of the sacred cow syndrome. You must realize also that the tax administration is part of the overall administration. It cannot be treated separately. Greece has to export more and produce goods that can compete with imports. Indeed, there has been an improvement over the last couple of years in a trade balance as companies have been forced to export, often below cost, to keep capacity going. They sell below cost and thus produce exports because they need the cash and because they do that to keep the capacity going. A sustainable growth of exports requires, however, much more than the lowering of wages. More than anything else, it is necessary to get the government out of the life of competitive enterprises. Simplify the tax system, simplify regulation, privatize, cut down staggering social burdens that prop up organized groups of rent seekers. So I have to be frank with you. I do not believe that a sustainable recovery is in sight in Greece as long as the Greek political system refuses to tackle the situation in the public administration. It just won't happen. We live now in Greece through a period of a phony period of confidence. All sorts of confidence-building statements are being issued from here and there about Greece that do not reflect reality. I do not believe that this optimism reflects reality. We are expecting this summer a new wave of taxes to hit the middle classes. In the summer, industrial production is down in spite of the exports that have picked up. The banking system faces an avalanche of non-performing loans. The collateral value of properties that secure loans has deteriorated substantially as a result of excessive property taxation. The banks, in my opinion, will quite likely need more capital. This will become apparent if and when, a rigorous asset quality review is conducted. If such a review is conducted, we will find out that the banks need more capital. Job creation is certainly not in sight, and privatizations move at a snail pace. How am I doing for time? Okay. The Troika, ladies and gentlemen, has been successful in Greece in achieving fiscal adjustment. We've achieved this fiscal adjustment. That's a success story, mainly through the control of the purse. I'll explain that. Do this or we won't give you the money. And because this worked, it has forced the administration to go ahead with the fiscal adjustment. But it has failed, the Troika has failed to promote forcefully administration reforms for reasons that are beyond my comprehension. Why did it shy away from pushing much more decisively for reform? The reform responsibility was given to the task force. But the task force was not issued the levers of power that the Troika had for the fiscal adjustment. And so the task force relies on common sense to get its things done. Persuasion. And I'm afraid that this is not enough. There's too much at stake for the entrenched sacred cows. They won't listen to reason. As things stand now, the Greek people are divided in two groups. Those who lose their jobs and pay taxes, because don't hear all this story. A lot of Greeks pay taxes, and many of them pay too many taxes. And those who are kept safe in jobs by the taxpayers. It's two groups of people. And this situation, in my opinion, is unsustainable. Sooner or later, the social and political system will crack. Now, Chairman, since I noticed that I've spent only 10 minutes, you will allow me to give you a practical example, which turned up yesterday. As I was flying from Athens here, I picked up the Herald Tribune, on whose front page figured a story under the title, Facing the Chaos of Greece's Land Registry. If you notice, in one of the cards of Mr. Reichenbach's presentation, I think it was item number 12, the land registry, one of the various tasks he wants to do. So I will read to you now, because I thought the description in the Herald Tribune was excellent. Let me read you an excerpt. Quote, Greece's creditors, the European Commission, the IMF, and the European Central Bank have made it clear that they want the development of a land registry and a zoning map called a cadastre sped up. That's the quotation. I keep reading. International experts have been visiting Greece in the past year offering advice. They probably refer to Mr. Reichenbach's task force. They concluded, according to the Herald Tribune, that the most recent setbacks stemmed from a very poor tendering process, which resulted in expensive and inefficient contracts. Julius Ernst, one of the experts from Austria who participated in a fact-finding mission, said the government had not been clear enough in defining what it wanted done and how. There has been a lot of money spent, and no one knows where it went, Mr. Ernst said. The goal now is to finish by 2020. Though the Greek officials call this optimistic, we are now in 2013, and the Greek officials think that it's going to be optimistic to finish by 2020. In the end, they said, Greece will probably spend €1.5 billion straightening things out. So that was yesterday's publication in the Herald Tribune. And what I want to say with that, it is true that a lot of money, your money, has been spent and no one knows where it went. It is absolutely typical, this land registry business. It's a grand scheme. Let's have a land registry in Greece. Of course we have to have a land registry in Greece, which is pushed on a Greek administration absolutely incapable of implementing it. And also, not just incapable of implementing it, probably unwilling to implement it. They are not interested in implementing it. Now, I won't go into detail why people don't want a registry, but it's true. Money, a lot of money is wasted, particularly your money is wasted. Some people get rich, no question, and nothing happens. The problem with the land registry, ladies and gentlemen, in Greece, has very serious implications. Very serious implications. How can you assess taxes on property if you don't know who owns what? You cannot do it. Nevertheless, that fact has not stopped the Troika from foolishly insisting on property taxes as if this problem does not exist. So we have a Troika that says, apply property taxes, and they disregard the fact that there's no base on which to honestly, technically apply the taxes. So sometimes you think these people from the Troika are number pushers. They have their Excel sheets or whatever they have. They push the numbers and they think by saying something it happens. It just doesn't happen. Okay. Now, a solution, a practical solution, now I'm addressing myself effectively to Mr. Reichenbach. Cut the problem down to smaller slices. Prioritize the registry of urban areas. Instead of saying we will do all of Greece, start by doing smaller areas, urban areas. Urban areas in Greece are 5% of the total, but they probably represent 90% of the value. Start by doing something small, but get it done. With just, I had recently made a proposal to the government that doesn't listen. With just €1 million, and within only 6 months, we could know the surface of all buildable areas in Greek municipalities, all of it. And then, based on that knowledge, create a system for the taxation of property that would be clean, simple, efficient. Everybody would pay their taxes. But no, we have the grand projects, get lost in them, and a lot of money goes by. We could reduce the problem further with this land registry I'm talking by focusing on one big municipality. For instance, I would take the municipality of Salonika, which has a very progressive mayor, Mr. Boutaris. So we could do that in one municipality. Now, coming back, what I'm saying now to Mr. Reichenbach is Instead of making these big things, make it smaller, focused, and get it finished. Everything that is finished acts as an example and is useful for others to imitate. And in some cases, don't just advise. Do it. Because it's one thing to tell someone, I remember a story, someone wanted to play basketball and say, what should I do? Play like Mike Jordan. Well, I cannot do that. You cannot ask someone to do something for which he's not capable. So in some cases, you have to do it yourself. So this is the kind of advice I would be giving if my opinion were asked. Thank you very much.